Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Method in Madness. This is episode number 52. Today, we're going to talk about arts integration in learning. Just after the NEP 2020 was released, the whole idea about arts integration uh, has changed. How has it changed? What was art integration before and what is it now? What is it demanding? How, as teachers and parents, we can help our children learn more effectively, engage with whatever they're learning with art, through art. We are going to talk about that and much more uh, this episode. But before we go on to our conversation with our guest this evening, I would like to announce a very important event. This is the Open Out Symposium. It's an initiative by Joy of Drama. We had done this last year in Kochi. It was a physical event. And Open Out is all about bringing arts and education in the forefront when we talk about school education and learning. As we know, due to pandemic, the school education system has been hit. There are many challenges that schools have faced, teachers are continuously facing, and we are going to look at how arts can help. These symposiums are very important. These conversations are very important. And therefore, I would request all of you to join us for the next weekend, 22nd and 23rd of May. This is a non-sponsored event. There are no sponsors. We are doing it on our own. And that's why we have kept a small ticket. There will be 5 workshops for teachers and parents throughout these 2 days and 2 very important panel discussions. There's an offer of 50%, and anybody who's watching this program today can log on to our website, openoutnow.com, and get a full event pass for 2 days just for rupees 500. We want all of you to participate. There are various workshops that eminent people will be coming and conducting just for teachers and parents. So please join us at Open Out next weekend. So for today's episode, we have with us Gopa Trivedi. Let me tell you a little bit about Gopa. Gopa is a visual artist, and she is an artist mentor with Arts First. It's an organization which works with schools and creates curriculums based on arts, visual arts. Let us find more about what she does, how can she help, and what her ideas are about arts integration in the right way. Welcome, Gopa.
Hi, Vaishali. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening, Gopa. Just to let all our audience know that we are going to talk for the next 45 minutes, and then you are free to ask your questions. And as we have a conversation, please join us through the chat box, which is live, and we'll try and take some comments from you and discuss that as well. So let's begin, Gopa. Arts integration is a big word and bigger word now that the new national education policy is out. And most of the teachers are worried whether they're on the right track or not. What is arts integration exactly? I've been getting lots of calls from many teachers across the country asking for ideas where drama can be integrated or visual arts can be integrated. So before we move into what it is and how we can do it, let us talk a little bit about why should we do it? Why should we do art integration or art-based learning?
Thank you, Vaishali, for the question. Actually, it's a very good thing because even I've experienced that teachers, just because it's a mandate, now everybody wants to get into arts integration and they're all getting worried about the fact that how do we integrate and how do we, it has to be done. But very few are asking that why is it important? Is it important only because it has become a mandate? Why was it not done till now? Or why do people feel that education becomes much more meaningful and much better when you start integrating different types of arts, not only visual arts? So my simple answer to that would be the fact that integrating art with any form of learning facilitates experiential learning, where your body, your mind, and your soul they start getting involved. You are not only learning theories, you are looking at them practically, doing it and experiencing it, and then deriving upon, then perhaps looking at different other theories which lend to that understanding. But you are coming upon those discoveries and those experiments on your own, and something that you learn by doing. We all know, like, I think ever since childhood we've been told, if we want to remember or memorize something, just write it, because
Yes.
at that point of time your mind and your hand is working. But this is not just as simple as that. It's not for memorizing, it is to go beyond, it is to internalize it. It's, you might not remember the words, but you will definitely remember the essence of why you did what you did. And definitely with each person experience having their own experience, they will derive a different type of connection towards everything that they're learning. It's not necessary that if I'm learning a particular poetry or say some concept in science, I might apply it the same way. Every to each their own. I might use it for something else if I am, now that I've grown up um, and I'm an artist. I apply everything that I learned to my field in a different manner than a person who has gone on and done engineering. It's just, but what is important that it shouldn't remain at the level of memorizing. It should get internalized, and I think art education does exactly that. When you start integrating any kind of, not only visual arts but any kind of art form with education, it helps internalize that knowledge. And you start building your own knowledge. It doesn't remain at the level of information, that it's an information that I've got or a definition that I've learned. It becomes a knowledge that you have arrived upon. And I think that's, in my understanding, that's what I feel it definitely does. I
Now we
hope.
all know, yeah, we all know that Gopa, we have all been in school, and we know that there used to be this art department where there would be an art teacher, and we would go there, and there would be some still images we have to paint, or they would send us to the park and ask us to just paint whatever we like. How is making art or painting different from integrating it into the curriculum?
So, to this question, I think if we are talking about how we used to do it or how mostly everywhere it is done, um, see, arts also needs to have its own curriculum, which is absolutely important, which I think in most of the places there is no art curriculum per se to follow. Uh, so, most of the time when people start integrating, what happens is that art just becomes a tool rather than it being integrated, because uh, it just becomes like, if I want to memorize something, maybe I am incorporating a different kind of a tune or a music with it. and I start singing that rhyme, but it helps me memorize. But what is it that I'm learning about music in that particular class? For integration to happen, there needs to be equal weightage given to both the subjects that are being integrated.
Okay.
Now, if I'm talking about art, so whichever subject of art it is going to be, for example, for visual arts, if I'm looking um, mm, at any art form that if it is about drawing, I want to integrate drawing with some other aspect of maybe EVS that that children do. I need to be, as a teacher, be very clear of the fact that what is it about drawing that I am going to teach my child. So, in that particular class, the objective for the EVS as well as the art class,
Art.
yeah, or art need to come together. Equal weightage needs to be given, and so if you're painting, you're not just sitting and painting. It's about what aspect of, whether it could be your class could be about introducing you to colors,
Hmm.
or maybe if I'm painting, I want to introduce monochromes to my children. So in that class, I will introduce the concept of monochromes and then get on to them to kind of express their own stories. I could um, let them, give them that freedom to explore. But my idea is also that I would like them to be introduced to, say, monochromes in that class. Or if I'm talking about composition, what aspects of composition, which I feel most of the times in the art classes, which generally happen without keeping any skeletal in mind. It just gets reduced to the physical skill of how beautiful it is being painted, um, which I think somewhere hampers the main objective of a class.
Hmm. Like drama in education, because I work in that field, it has a method, a process of thought. What do you bring to the class? How you plan a drama based co-scholastic class where you are maybe integrating an aspect of mathematics with an aspect of drama or through drama. So there's a lot of planning which goes you know in creating an integrated class. What kind of planning does an art teacher do while she or he is trying to integrate another subject into her session? Or how does a class teacher who has to teach all the subjects integrate art while teaching EVS or mathematics or whatever?
Uh, so for this, the preparation, if for integration, the preparation needs to be that any teacher, be it a subject teacher or an art teacher, the major aspect of integration, especially for seniors classes, is that art teachers and the subject teachers need to sit together to plan. So, first thing which is very important is, like a subject teacher is very thorough with their own subject and what they have to teach. Similarly, the art teacher needs to be very thorough with their own subject matter. And it's not only about the skill of being that I'm able to paint very well, I can teach art. That's not the only thing. It's also important to understand the pedagogy of art for an art teacher. Also, it is important to be very aware of what is it that you want to teach your child about your own subject, so that when you're planning, whether you're looking at any other subject, whichever other subject that you are going to look at, say for example, if it is like you said, EVA,
Nutrition.
huh?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nutrition. Let's look at nutrition because somebody has just asked again to share ideas for nutrition, food and nutrition. Yeah.
Alright. So if I'm looking at food and nutrition, and what is it, as a teacher, I would like to be very aware. If I'm an art teacher and I want to include that, first I would like to understand what about nutrition we want to incorporate into this particular class or lesson. Basically, your objective for that particular lesson, because we can't, nutrition also is a very wide
Yes.
range, and we need to be very specific as to if this is exactly what I need to talk to them about. How and then how, as an art teacher, then I will, once I understand what the teacher from say the subject nutrition wants to talk or talk about or do in the class, that's when I can, once I understand that fully, only then can I say where I, which aspect of art can I incorporate with it or integrate with it. And one more thing which I feel is important to know, that not everything can be integrated with the, and it shouldn't be also, is also one thing. Visual arts is one aspect of arts integration. There is, like you said, drama, there is music, there's dance. So there are certain aspects. So identifying the areas of integration where it is going very well or where it blends absolutely well, then the integration happens properly. Otherwise, if we are just integrating because we have to integrate, I think that's when we are trying to force fit certain things, which also should be avoided, is in my understanding, because I've seen many a times teachers try to do it because it needs to be done, and then figured that perhaps this could have been integrated better with say dance or say drama, certain other aspects of it. So that also uh, needs to be looked at very clearly. Yes.
Okay. Um, Now, at a very lay person's aspect of point of view, suppose I'm teaching daffodils to my children. So, and I want to integrate art into it. So, as a layperson, as a teacher who is enthusiastic about talking about daffodils, I might ask them to draw or paint daffodils on a card, and then make them write the poem inside the card, and send it to a loved one, maybe their father or mother. Post it. Will that become an art integration?
Um, well, I think if it is somewhere, if we just limit to that, I would say integration also has certain levels. Sometimes, becomes better through practice. Uh, since now one can look at it this way, that we are drawing and then we are writing also, so it is integration. But we can also look at it in this way, that what about if we are drawing? So what about drawing are we teaching them? Are we teaching them how to draw? How are they drawing it? Is also an important aspect. Can we include a detailed, say, observational drawing, where a child goes to the garden, experiences it, goes, observes those daffodils, spends time there. Teacher talks to them about different parts of that daffodil. They make observations. They share their learnings of what they are observing. They can touch and feel it, and then sit there itself and draw in whichever way they are drawing. But try to observe the flower through their own lens. Otherwise, daffodils, you will find many postcards which of daffodils from where a child can copy. It's not about drawing the idea of their daffodil. It's about, if we really want them to observe or learn about daffodils, it's important for them to actually see one.
Yeah. And it's
See
very difficult to see a daffodil in India. That's the
in
other
India.
problem. Hmm.
That's the other problem. But then, for example, how do we solve that problem? how will we solve that problem? So that also depends, it becomes very important. What about the daffodil? Are we teaching them, are we using the example of daffodil to teach them different parts of a plant, of a flower? If that's the case, maybe we look at a flower which is of the same family, which can be found within this geographical location. Otherwise, we ask them to perhaps collect or research about daffodils. And it depends on their level also. If it's a very small child, they won't be able to, but they can go online, research different images, different informations, and like you said, the poetry, and then, but that's going to totally depend on what is the objective of the class that we need to kind of do. And like you said, sometimes certain things are not possible. All of a sudden, we have planned something and it is not possible because today it started raining, but in my plan, that's not supposed to happen. Like I'm supposed to take the child out on a sunny day, but it has started raining. Then how do we go about it? We need to also, it's important as a teacher to be, to learn to think on the spot. And be very thorough with what one needs to put across. Yeah.
Now, I remember when we used to do these projects, the science project, or there would be a science fair at school, and we would make these models and, demonstrate. There would be people walking in, and we would, pretend to be scientists and talk about our invention, which is already, an experiment which was given in the book. To quite an extent, I felt that this is a part of a kind of integrated learning where the audience who's coming in is actually role playing as people coming in and asking the scientists what it is all about, and we as scientists, we are trying to kind of get into the role of scientists and explaining. But I always remember what experiment I had done, which project I had created, because I was creating that project, I was creating that file, I was doing it with my. So arts integration has already always been there in some form. How is it different this time with the new NEP?
Basically, arts integration, like I said, now we can say just because there is poetry and there is drawing, we've also done so many
Science
and
exhibitions.
debate, and it's a good thing that you brought it up because we have also done we have studied biology and we have drawn so many
Diagrams.
diagrams to understand the parts of the body. Now, there, my question to you is: does that become a tool, or does art become a tool over there? Drawing is just a tool, or drawing we are learning something about drawing also.
It is just a tool.
It just becomes a tool. So for integration to actually, like same for drama. What about drama did you learn at that, from that activity or that project? Uh, so for arts integration, it's important that it should become equal weightage to both the subjects need to be given. And yes, for that, it's absolutely, I think that's the major difference from the two examples that you gave and I gave, where art has just become a tool to learn, or say, sometimes, like we also talked about, putting something in a tune to remember songs. It's leading ultimately to memorizing something. But if we need to go beyond it, equal weightage and equal respect to both the subjects, or both, I wouldn't say subjects, both the streams need to be given, actually, for arts integration to truly happen. And then there are different levels of art, like it becomes better through experience.
Yes. But what is the basic level? Where can a teacher who wants to integrate art start?
The basic level should be that first the teacher, as a visual arts teacher, uh, it's important to be very well aware of the visual arts that they are in, not only in terms of skill. Most of the teachers who are visual artists and are teachers in schools, I've seen their skills are really good and they are fabulous with their work. But where they sometimes, I wouldn't say all of them, sometimes lack is the interest in reading, uh, and keeping up and being very well aware of the history of their own subject. Because once, as a teacher, if I am very well aware of the history of my own subject and what's going on currently, also in my field,
Field.
uh, it's important to be in touch with it and be aware of that. Only then will I be able, because a subject teacher will be uh, will be doing that also. You should expect that from any other subject teacher also, that they know their subject, what they are going to be teaching. So in order to incorporate, feel, you can say, add to their knowledge, one needs to be so much aware of your own subject. You need to be confident in your own, and always constantly keep on updating, because for integration to happen, this, I don't think there's a shortcut. And even as an art teacher, I would need to go beyond and read the subject that I am going to incorporate or integrate, for me to be able to advise the teacher better. And what the NEP has also done is that it has put the subject teacher and the art teacher, mm, I think equal importance is given to both.
Which is actually long due, which was long
It
due.
is. It is long due. And it shouldn't have been there in the first place, but one cannot avoid this reality that there is a huge difference between the way an arts teacher is treated in a school and the way a subject teacher is treated in a school. Which, it saddens me to say that, but I have observed that. Um, and I think for an arts teacher to take, I wouldn't say control, but at least
Own
have
their space,
own
own
their
their
own
own
space.
space.
Yes, exactly. It's important for that to happen.
Gopa, you have been working with schools, not just in cities but also in smaller areas. What is the biggest challenge that you see? Is it lack of knowledge of the teacher in that school, uh, or the lack of time for planning? Because if to plan a session I need my arts teacher as well as I need my subject teacher, there is a lot of time commitment that is required at both their ends for come together to sit to plan. uh, what is the biggest challenge that you see in schools with regard to art in education?
Mm, well, I wouldn't see. Of course, time becomes an issue because there are a lot of other things that are expected of art teachers, um, where they mostly become like interior decorators of the entire school. So there is a lot of pressure on the art teachers to do all of that work, which leaves them very little time to plan for their classes, because uh, everybody takes it as that, they know their skill, there's nothing more to update, so perhaps they don't need to plan. It's not that. And that's also because there's no curriculum in a school for a subject teacher. They have a book to say that I have this to finish. For an art teacher, they have nothing to go back to and say that I need to finish this, and nobody is even asking them. So they also, uh, sometimes, because of these other responsibilities that they have, there is lack of time. But I think if the management starts recognizing that the art teacher, which I think will happen with integration, uh, when planning needs to be thorough as any other subject, where the subject teacher and the art teacher needs to sit together and plan. And another thing that I have noticed, I wouldn't say it as a blanket statement, but art teachers sometimes also shy away from reading, which is something that I have observed and noticed. Uh, but I think that being teachers, we cannot escape from that. Um, if we have become teachers, we need to upgrade our knowledge, and we might be we might be masters of the skill that we have, but we can't say we don't need to upgrade our knowledge of subject, and that includes knowing history, knowing what's happening in contemporary times, all of it. And also for art teachers, it's also important to understand pedagogy, I would say, which is something that most of them are not aware, because mostly subject teachers who come, they have done a B.Ed, but our teachers haven't. But having said that, doesn't mean that they are not capable. They are fully capable, because I've seen the kind of connect that our teachers have with their children. It's
The
sometimes,
children.
yeah, it's amazing, and their children love them. So I'm not saying you need to learn pedagogy to have that, to be a good teacher. But if we are teachers, then we need to kind of upgrade. And I personally feel a certain kind of resistance to upgrade. Uh,
Hmm.
and that can be also because they have all the other responsibilities. But I think some time for research for our teachers also should be allotted by the administration. That they have to also realize that our teachers also, be it any art, like whether visual arts, performing arts, or dance, all of them need that time for research, allotted time for research, and lesson plan development, which needs to be given. And the rest of the things, of course, I think all the other teachers also involved, like an English teacher is always involved in other aspects also of school.
Yes.
But it only comes after they are done with the major aspect.
Hmm. Gopa, there is, I mean, in our audience, I'm sure there are a lot of parents who are also watching. And there is this whole shift that has happened due to the pandemic. As we all know, school has gone inside drawing rooms and bedrooms. So, how can a parent who wants learning to happen, and not just the child attending online school, at times children don't even switch on their cameras, and it's that's another thing, that's another story, another frustration which teachers go through, because there is no eye contact happening. How can the parent at home ensure that the learning is happening? Is there any way that we can integrate or help parents integrate art with learning at home?
Um, like, for example, if I remember correctly, it depends on. We get arts integration can happen. Actually, integration can happen from anywhere. If I supposing, if I have to look at an example.
Like the kitchen in integration has happened a lot last year.
Yeah,
Anything.
and I think it's important for a child to understand that. For example, a simple thing, and I came across it, and I was like, it's not an example of arts integration, but it's quite interesting that a teacher wanted to talk about chemistry and talk about different ingredients. So what she asked the children to do is get different. all the products that they come across, some food products, some cosmetic products. And then she asked them to look at the list of the materials that are there. And they're like, oh, kitchen also has these chemicals, and what I put on the face also has these chemicals. And then they've sat and researched each one of them do, and then they came to their own understanding of that how harmful most of these products are, and also talking about how interrelated both the things are, like and then that's what gave the children understanding that chemistry is not just a subject, it's very much part of our life. So these are very small examples of teaching the children to observe. Basically, what also happens in visual arts is a lot of activities that one does needs a child to observe. And I think observation, when it becomes a part, observation, critical thinking, questioning, when it all becomes a part of one's being, integration always happens on its own.
Right.
That
Yes.
for example, like if I'm using turmeric, it can be used as medicine, it can be also used as a dye for clothes, it is also something that we eat in our food. So there are and like for example, you asked for an example, if Wiley is something that many a times I've seen, even in schools, even at home, in summer vacations, parents will ask their children to paint some pots, where children go and do those Wiley drawings. For those who don't know, Wiley drawings are like one must have seen triangular figures with round heads, and dancing figures. Those are things that everybody does. And even in schools, teachers introduce children to this, and they make them paint pots or cards or everything. But instead, what can also be done with that is that one can look at the history of that particular art form.
Art
Uh,
form.
where has it come from, why is the color, if one as parents, even if you don't know, but these are certain questions that you can always ask a child, that why is it always white and red in color. Ask the child to find that answer, even if you don't know the history. But you ask the right questions to the child and ask them to find the answers for you. That in itself will allow a lot of learning to happen, basically. And who are these people? Where do they live? Where do they come from? That's where your geography also comes in. That if they come up and talk to you about, or you can, it's very easy to find out about these things on these days internet as well.
And
Uh,
children love doing this. Children love going to, going onto the internet, typing on
and
Google,
finding
and
out, yes, exactly. Also, very simple, like where is Maharashtra? If Varli is a tribe, they live in Maharashtra. Uh, Near Bombay, it is what is what do they do? Okay, they are farmers. Okay, what material did they use to paint this? So these are questions that, as parents, is important. It's not always about teaching. Maybe you can ask them the right questions and ask them to research those, and it's by doing, finding out answers on their own is what is going to mm, lead to a qualitative learning, uh, is what I would say. So, like as parents, it's important that you ask the children the right questions, even if you don't know. Whatever you don't know, you ask them that question.
and this is one of the first points, first lessons that is taught in a drama education workshop, that ask questions to which you don't know the answers of. So that is, I think, that's a great way for a continuous learning for the adult also. Uh, and children love teaching. So yeah. Uh,
And
yes, go on.
no, no, no. So, I mean, also teachers are also always overburdened with this whole idea of being the one who knows it all. And I think it's also important if we want the children to ask us questions. Sometimes it's also important to be vulnerable in front of them and say that it's okay, I don't know about it. Can we find it out together? Because it's not necessary being a teacher, you know everything, but in the process of learning, if you learn along with your children, I think children that also helps in building that rapport with children, that you can learn along with them. And I think it's always okay to say that I don't know, and I will. We can find it out together, and that can also be an approach to teaching. It is what I personally feel.
Gopa, tell us a little bit about art first. And you said you are into developing curriculums. So, are these curriculums for art teachers, or are these integrated curriculums for subject teachers?
Um, so Art First, they have developed a curriculum which I've said that most of the schools do not have a curriculum for art. So these are well researched books which have been which Art First has created for primary as well as middle schools, and all the artists and many artists and psychologists and and educators have sat together to work on it, and these books are for children, um, for them to have a book also, because they do have books for all the other subjects.
Hmm.
These are books which have images of artists' works. Uh, it introduces them to, it has various stories. And these books have a scope for integration, where, of course, there is a structure, a skeletal that is there for a teacher to follow. It looks at elements of art. It looks at different world 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 art forms, Indian art forms, and also introduces children to the contemporary Indian artists, which is something that one doesn't come across at all. What happened? What apart from few art forms of India, people are barely aware of Indian artists. So it's also about introducing children to a variety of visuals which are produced in our time. Um, and these books are majorly for children, and then for the art teachers to use within the class. And for integration, there is a lot of scope for integration within it, and they are fairly integrated also. But teachers, in our experience, what we realized, teachers are able to integrate it very well by the third year, because first 2 or 3 years it takes first 2 years it takes them time to follow that structure, because there's a lot of art history, or knowing of history of their own subject that needs that takes time for teachers to be used to, uh, because they need to be very up to date also with certain aspects of the books. So, following a curriculum becomes a little difficult for teachers in the first year, basically, because they are not used to it. And it requires rigorous lesson planning as well,
Hmm.
which is something which becomes a part of their habit by the second year. And by third year, I think they are able to integrate quite well.
Yes.
Use those. Yeah.
Mm. No, I agree with this that it at least takes 3 years for anybody, not just a visual artist, but a visual arts teacher, but anybody who would like to integrate an art subject into the regular curriculum. Most of it is also looking at permutation combinations and choosing what works and what does not work. And I think, just correct me if I'm wrong, I think that also depends on the child and the teacher and the school. uh, do you see that happening? Like, if I have a book, suppose, and I take this book to 10 different schools, I mean, it never so happens that this book is taught the same way. It will change. uh, so if, are the teachers free to do that, make that change? If and how will they ensure that they're still within that decorum of art and education?
So that's a very good question. So basically, it's not having a book is not that you it's not a commandment that you need to follow. It is a skeletal that's there. And first year, I said it becomes a little difficult because uh, like I said, there is a structure to it that you have certain requirements, keeping in mind a child's artistic development. That by the first year, a child needs to be aware of these aspects of elements of art. And then how are we taking it at different stages? It's something, it takes them time to understand the structure of it. It's just that. And once you have internalized that structure, of course, as a teacher, you need to have that freedom to make the changes, and it needs to be customized according to the needs of a child, because it can't be that I have this book and only this shall be followed. um, you need to make changes according to the environment you live in, because there might be certain projects which are there, cannot be done in all
Yeah,
parts.
contextualizing basically the learning.
Yes, and incorporating local histories and local knowledge is also extremely important for for cultural studies to happen. It's also important to look at, like I know of a very good example in one of the schools in Firozpur, where it was the teachers had kind of, and most of the children who came there were from the families of farmers. Now, and of course, the city also borders Pakistan. So it's like a very, the city also has a lot of history. Mm, Most of the children, the teachers did a project over there where they asked them to collect as many different types of grains that they can, which are grown within their system, within their
Region. Hmm.
region. And then they asked them to create sort of do a sort of a display, and also ask them to research about how did this grain reach here and what was grown here before. So as a child, to be aware of it, and they did take interest in the first time. Like, I think parents also shared this, that the first time the child is coming and asking them about what they grow, how they grow, which is very important, like not to be
Yes.
removed from what is your own history.
Hmm.
So I think, of course, there is a lot of scope for having a book. Doesn't mean you have to follow it uh, to every word that's written over there. It's just gives you
Deepa
more to
is
explore. Yeah.
Yes. Deepa is asking. Deepa heads the performance arts, the creative department at Global Public School in Kochi. And thank you, Deepa, for joining us. She is asking, how can we source these books?
So sourcing these are books are not really available uh, outside, but I think you can get in touch with Art First and ask for the books from them. So
Okay.
yes,
Can you,
definitely.
yeah, can you give us the website where we could log on to?
Yes, actually, I can. give you the number to also I can give you the website actually.
Yeah. If you could give us the website, then we can maybe display it over here.
Yes.
Uh, but I think this is what Art First is doing is very, very important. Um, and I have seen many schools that, I mean, a few schools that Art First has worked with. For instance, Shiv Nadar School, Art First has been with them for a very long
Yeah.
time, developing the curriculum. And I think that's a amazing curriculum that Shiv Nadar has. Uh, so please, anybody who's watching who is an administrator or part of a school, please get in touch with Arts First. Art First, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Art First, and log on to their website and see what they can do for you. Uh, can we have some questions now? I know there are many of us watching, and I've got some comments in the beginning. Okay, before we go on to the questions, again, one little reminder on the Open Out Symposium that we are having next weekend. The link is given in the chat. Please go there. Please look at the link, open the link, and buy your ticket. This ticket is available for a reduced price just for this hour that we are having a conversation. So I think it'll be there only till 7 o'clock. So please go and buy it. Okay, till 8 p.m. Okay, all right. All right. We have got some comments. Ganapati Balasubramaniam is saying, in Belgium, schools are integrating arts as a part of regular learning. They take small children to farms to see the domestic animals, visit to apple garden, to apple picking. There is integration. Does this fall under arts, Gopa?
Of course it does because it depends on whether you if you are taking them, like I said, experiential learning is a major part of arts integration, and observation is mandatory for drawing from a picture and drawing from experience um, is something, and through observation is something which is very, very important. And there is like I said, that it's not always necessary that your end result needs to be a final end result of a drawing. It could be just about having a discussion. Maybe you have written a poetry, but it's about documenting your experiences. Like everybody says, art is about expression, but you cannot express anything if you have not experienced anything. So it is definitely, I would say, about uh,
Art integration.
yes, art integration definitely is.
So when we hear the term art integration or arts integration, and I'm a new teacher, uh, how should I respond to it? Should I immediately start looking for an arts teacher in the school, or how do I go about it?
So basically, we in our experience, what I've also seen that being many of the subject teachers are able to take art in the schools. It also depends on what are you focusing on when you're teaching them art. Are you looking at teaching them a certain skill of many a times these are questions that come to us by many parents whose children also go for certain other art classes outside. They say that when my child is in the school, he or she is not able to draw a straight line properly or a dog like a dog. But outside, when they go for another class, they're able to draw human figures very perfectly. Now, as a parent, like that's something when we ask the parents that what is the child achieving through that by learning to draw a figure in a perfect manner. It's one thing is your training it's like you draw a circle 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, you will be able to draw a circle. But what are you achieving by being able to draw that circle? the whole process of what you're focusing on, what one should focus on in a visual arts class is about the process, how a child is interpreting a drawing in their own way, how a child is playing with the material or is able to experience and deal with the material in their own way. Because the so-called proper way of using watercolors, proper way of using poster colors can be learned a little later. The stage, like for one says, the
Primary
primary
section.
sections, you don't need to teach them the proper way of doing, because that's what takes a person away
The
from
fun
learning.
of art. Yeah,
Ha,
from
the fun
learning
of
and
art and
enjoying it.
also exploring it in their own manner. So when a teacher hears arts integration, they shouldn't first of all get panicky, because that's what I've noticed. Most of the teachers get panicked. What's most important to know is that it's like any other subject. How you plan for any other subject, you plan for your arts integration class. You ask whether you're asking your music teacher, drama teacher, or art teacher, you ask them, what is it that you are planning in this class? This is my, and I am planning to integrate this subject, and one needs to see that if I'm integrating balance, then why am I integrating balance with visual arts? Or why am I, or should I integrate balance with, say, dance? What is it that I need to integrate and why I need to integrate? And does it go very well with each other? And of course, it's important to go to your art teachers in the class in the school who are taking art or
Drama, theater,
theater,
music.
because they are experts. You need to take their understanding, make them understand what you want to do, and I think both of you then can arrive at but you also, as a subject teacher, need to give equal importance to their subject, just the way you want them to give importance to yours. So I think equal weightage is going to be very important for
Yes.
integration
And
happening.
yes, and NEP is also talking about equity and sustainability. So I think this is the only way to go ahead, and especially now that everything is online, arts integration and integrating arts has become more important than ever.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gopa. Thank you for doing this conversation, because this is very important. We have been doing at Joy of Drama or at Method in Madness since for a year now. We have been talking about arts and the relevance of arts in our lives and in the growth of our children. And I think with the new NEP coming in, it definitely brings in a lot of hope. And if implemented well, I'm sure it will be beneficial to both teachers and students. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon, because every week we do these conversations. Next week, we'll have two conversations. These will be panel discussions. Please quickly go to openoutnow.com and register yourself for the free panel discussion sessions on 22nd and 23rd May, 7 to 8 p.m. There are very special guests, and on 23rd, we are talking to three very reputed school principals on the future of education after pandemic. So thank you everybody again for joining. Thank you, Gopa, for your time, and
Thank you for having me.
let's look ahead and hope for a better future for the arts
Yeah.
in education.
Hope so too.